What's going on, Maschine Masters family? This is MGTheFuture, here back with another exclusive tutorial for the Maschine Masters channel. Today I wanted to talk about some of the new features found in the new 2.4 or 2.6. It's one of those 2 points. It came out around the time I was doing the course for the sampling master workshop, and I never got a chance around to it to see if the new features would suit my workflow. And then they dropped us today, as you can see, with version 2.5. And that was really interesting. I'm checking out the web and looking at different videos, and no one really knows what's all in this kit. I'm sure there's a release note for it, but from what I can tell, there's new kits, there's new instrument libraries, and I'm sure there's some under the hood features. Everyone keeps talking about command, comma, I believe it is, and hopefully I don't mess nothing up. But yeah, you can go straight to your preferences and manipulate all your audio settings, which is pretty cool if I was to use Maschine in this capacity. This is really cool to have that, especially the buffer size. But in context of what I want to do this video about, I was going to show you guys the new sampling feature real quick. And the reason why it's real quick is because if you check out my Maschine Masters hip hop course for the Maschine, I use a totally different method and mechanism. So I had to find a way to use this. And when I was doing that, it dawned on me that DJ Premier does this, or used to do it way back in the day. So I find it appropriate to use one of my favorite DJ Premier beats as the outline for going over this feature. So what we're going to do is just have a sample here, and as you can see by the title, it's the Nas Like sample. So it's a gospel record. It's pretty cool. Someone sent it to me quite a few years ago when they found it. Now it's all over the internet, so I guess the cat's out of the bag on this one. But when you hit the pad, and I don't know if you guys can see on the camera here, that the next pad starts lighting up. And what that new feature is doing is, if you hit the pad to trigger the sample, and as it's playing, you can make a new slice by hitting the next pad in succession. So I'm just going to do it for demonstration purposes so you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to hit the pad, and then when I want to make another slice, I'm going to hit it again. So I'm not as on point as I need to be. I'm sure with a different type of sample, especially something really rhythmic and percussion based, this would be really cool. But I like to zone in and really get between transients on this. And I believe this little new auto snap feature does just that. But just to play these back real quick. And as you notice, if you hit the last sample you marked, it starts lighting up again, because you could chop that even. Do micro chops. And I thought that was pretty cool and intuitive. It's a lot better than using, the little dials we have at the top of our controllers. So that's one of the new features that everyone's been talking about, pretty excited about. It is pretty cool, and using it in the context of a choppy type of workflow, it makes a whole lot of sense to have that available. So I took that same concept and I applied it to this track here. I'm going to go into edit mode and show you guys. I have quite a few chops here. And let me play it back solo. So the reason why that's pretty cool, especially when you think of DJ Premier, is that most of his stuff, if you hear his breakdowns, the sample kind of stops before he goes. That's because he's using this kind of workflow or sample management. In fact, there's probably the only mechanism we had back in the day with the actual machines at the time. And for this particular sample, I wanted to try to mimic his workflow or his style, as I will show you with the rest of this track. But the hardest thing to do is to emulate the speed of a turntable. And what I mean by that is, you'll notice on these tracks, I had to pitch them up. I pitched them up 3, and what I ended up doing is I selected all of them with the shift key and then I change the tune to apply it all at once. Under normal circumstances, it sounds like this. And it's more like 83 beats per minute like that. But the thing about most of Premiere's beats, a lot of them are in the 90s range, like 95 for this one, I believe, or 94.5. So in order to achieve that with the same sample, you have to do some sort of time stretching. So I kept that in mind and knew back then they weren't using time stretching, so they were using pitch. But not just any pitch, it was a turntable pitch. So if you have any emulators or plugins that can do that, I would recommend it. I believe Ableton Live can do it, as I showed before. That'd be pretty cool to speed it up in Ableton Live like a turntable and export that and bring it on. The next thing I end up doing for this particular example while I was working on it is just work on the drums. And this is really simple. And this brings me to another feature I don't know that a lot of people use, but I want to show you guys. So this is just a regular straight ahead 16 beat pattern. And it's pretty cheesy. I try to use really generic drums for this style of music. And a lot of DJ Premier beats, there's not a lot going on outside of the samples. His bass is always on point, his rhythm is on point, but as far as percussion and drum sounds, is really straight ahead. So one of the features I wanted to show you guys was that not only do we have like group, and then we can change the groove like I did here by applying a small amount to the whole group, but I also use nudge a lot. And a lot of Fruity Loops users have to do this, like Ninth Wonder and sorts. But basically I hold down the shift key and I hit the nudge button and you can move it around. And as you can see here, it's moving it a whole 16th. So all you have to do is make sure this little grid at the bottom where my mouse is unchecked, and you can nudge in really tiny increments. So that's really cool. It throws your hi-hats off a little bit to give it a little bit more groove. And of course you can always play it live and record it live without any quantize, but nudge does the job, especially for these where the hi-hats are a little bit faster. So I was going through the massive library for bass sounds. All of these seem to be DJ Mustard-esque and dubstep driven, so I couldn't really find a sub like I needed for this kind of track. So I ended up using Poppy Seeds, which I believe is from one of the Maschine expansions, the one where they were like going over that Flying Lotus sound. The next part I'm going to show you guys in this track is the scratches. So let me go ahead and solo that for you guys. So all I'm doing here is I took the Nas is Like from It Ain't Hard to Tell and I chopped that up in sampling mode. And I want to say the auto snap is probably just a placebo effect, but I felt like when I was messing with it and trying to zone in on the transient, it was a lot smoother. I want the official word on that, but it's on point, especially when you go into edit mode and use it. It just felt like it snapped better for me. I don't know if that makes sense. And the trick to doing something like that, in DJ Premiere's case, he's a real DJ, of course. So he's scratching live, multiple records at a time, and I'm sure they're putting it on ADAT or something like that, or even just resampling it, knowing them. But in the case of a digital workflow and you're not scratching, all you would have to do is cut up some scratches and cut up your vocals and put them all in the same group and choke together. So you highlight everything with the shift key. So you hold the top, hold shift, and click the bottom to select everything. And make sure everyone's in the same choke group. So this says it has multiple chokes, but you could change it to one. Everyone's in one choke group. And it's doing that because some of these pads weren't assigned to a choke group. But anyway, so what this does is if I hit the sample of him speaking, the chops I have of the scratching cut off the vocal sample. and you just play them together and get a pattern you like, and you emulate quote unquote scratching. And that brings me to the next part. They kind of snuck this in here. It's a new plugin called Perform FX. And it has that. And I believe, and I would assume this is made for the new Maschine Jam. Stay tuned, by the way. And there's a feature here called Scratcher. And it took me a while to kind of figure it out without actually having that controller yet. But you could just slide it with your mouse. And what happens is when you engage it by clicking it, it engages, of course. If you let go, it disengages. So whatever the effect is, and they have quite a few here, stutter's going to be dope for the hip hop, and certainly scratches. But I'm going to try it out real quick. And that's crazy. I'm just playing around with it to show you guys what it's doing. But essentially, when you engage it and there's a sample playing on the track that you have this effect assigned to, it applies that effect. And of course, you could adjust it and customize the frequency shift and the wet level and feedback, delay time, etc., etc. And each of them have a really micro adjustments you can make. But I think it's dope. Really do. Like, and you notice the higher you go up, the more drastic or wet the effect is. Like the man said, it's amazing. So that's that. So hopefully I'll get my bearings on this new 2.5 update when the Jam gets here, and really crack a book open or a manual open and dig under the hood. But I just wanted to show you guys that new chopping feature of being able to play through a sample and mark your chop points as it plays, which is, in my opinion, they should have had that from the beginning. It's crazy. But anyway, guys, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to get on top of that, show you guys this track. If you want me to cover any particular topic in terms of making tracks like this, like a DJ Premier, Ninth Wonder, or any producer that's your favorite, and you want me to kind of look under the hood of what they're doing and show you guys those techniques, I'd be more than happy to. It's kind of what I do. So definitely stay tuned, like, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, you guys have a good one.